Welcome to training on the UCAS Customer Administration Portal 3.0. This video will deal with call flow in the PBX. This will be a specialized lesson to teach you about the different aspects of call flow. By the end of this lesson, the following topics will be discussed: defining call flow and associated elements, how to add, edit, and delete schedules, how to point unaffiliated numbers, how to administer your auto attendant, and how to configure and use hunt groups. In the context of a hosted PBX and the call flow within, there are really three situations that need to be addressed. Incoming calls are those that originate from outside the system and terminate within it. These are your customers and partners, businesses calling your company. Incoming calls will use a combination of direct inward dialing numbers, otherwise called DIDs, to reach individuals, and automated call distribution logic, or ACD, to select the appropriate endpoint or hunt through a list of available ones in order to get help. Call forwarding is also a consideration of the incoming side of call flow, as is scheduled call routing. Outgoing calls originate in your system and terminate outside of it. These are the calls your employees make when they contact sales prospects or other companies. An important consideration here is dialing restrictions, such as enabling or disabling international dialing. Another factor in outgoing calls is caller line identification. In other words, the way your caller ID is presented to external companies. Lastly, speed dialing and personal directories are ways to make outgoing calls to the same numbers easier, quicker, and more accurate. And the calls that go across your system both originate and terminate in your PBX. These are your extension to extension calls. One final thing to consider here is the corporate directory, which is your internal contact list that is found on your phones and soft phone clients. We will begin with the in portion of the call flow, specifically the scheduled call routing portion. For this, as with any alteration to the PBX, we will go to the Customer Administration Portal. We will start with the Schedule subsection in the category of the same name. Here, we can establish any of our schedules that will be used for call routing. You can see a list of the schedules here and can edit and delete most of them, but let's look at creating a new one. The New Schedule button is at the top, and that's where we'll start. This opens the New Schedule dialog window. The first thing to set is a unique name for the schedule. It helps if the name makes sense for what you plan to use the schedule for. The next option for schedule type is regular or holiday, and in this case we will leave it on regular. Then we will add events with the Add Event button. When adding an event, we need to think about when the event will trigger. In the case of most schedules, we want the event to trigger when we want to redirect the call, in this case when the office is not open. So we will establish the times outside of normal business hours. If we build a schedule for an auto attendant, we would do the opposite and establish the times that we want that particular menu to play. We need to give our event a unique name. Maybe we call it early hours, so we know this is a schedule for the times before the office opens. Then we establish a recurrence. This early hours schedule will repeat Monday through Friday, so we set the recurrence to weekly with the radio button on the left and select all the days except Saturday and Sunday to the right. If we want the schedule to automatically end, in the case of seasonal hours, for example, we can place the end date here. Then we can set the time for the event. Since this is the morning, we will start the time at 0 hour and end when the office opens at 8 a.m. For evening hours, we would end them at 11:59 p.m. If we wanted a full day event, we would use the full day selector just to the left. Finally, we will save our recurring event with the Save button at the bottom. Then the menu will look like this one, zoomed in to show the events. Notice how the early hours intervals are now visualized in blue. We could use the Add Event button 2 more times to add evening hours and weekend all-day events, and then save the schedule when we are done. Now, our new schedule is on the list, ready to be used for scheduled call routing. We will cover that in detail in a later section, and for that we will need to move away from the schedules category. First, we will make sure the extensions themselves are assigned and addressed properly. For this, we use the Manage Phone System subsection of the Services category. Here we see a list of the seats, their extensions, and their associated users. To assign a user, we will use the Reassign link, which will then give you a drop-down menu of all available users so that you can select the one you would like. This list of users is drawn from the database we worked on in the Administration and Access subsection. For additional information, see the video about user administration. In order to have a consistent dialing scheme, you can change the extension numbers for individual seats. Press the extension itself and then enter the desired number between 2 and 5 digits. There are some limits to the extensions you choose. For example, you cannot pick an extension that is already in use, or you pick a reserved extension, such as 411 or 911. The system will prevent you from making these changes and will give you a warning to tell you why it could not complete your request. The ability to customize extensions helps directly with incoming calls as well as those going across the enterprise. Virtual and toll-free numbers is a way to assign the unaffiliated direct inward dial numbers to extensions within the PBX. Often these are numbers published on your website or on business cards. Every PBX comes with a generic virtual number, noted as the company main number, and you can point it to any group service such as an auto attendant or a hunt group. Additional virtual numbers purchased can point to any extension within the PBX. If you wish to purchase additional numbers, contact your sales channel. To assign one of these numbers, click the Edit link. At this point, a drop-down menu will open, and you can select from the extensions where you would like that number to point. Save your change in the menu, and they will become effective immediately. Toll-free numbers are added to these proper virtual numbers. In our example, we want the 800 number to point right at the hunt group first, so we would select hunt group 6666 and save. Auto attendants are part of ACD, or automated call distribution. They allow your caller to select from a menu of options to direct the call. The auto attendant subsection of the services category shows the auto attendants you have purchased for your PBX. You should have one available to you by default, and additional ones are available for purchase. Contact your sales channel for additional auto attendants. Before we go further, this is a reminder of the help files that are available by following the question mark icon in the upper right corner. These files are useful to remind you of options and details when you need them. To reveal further details about the auto attendant, select the auto attendant itself. With this expanded view, you can see more details about your auto attendant. At the top, you can see your settings that show some caller ID information and the extension. You can edit these settings by pressing the Edit link on the left-hand side. Just below this is the scheduling settings. Many auto attendants are used as backup or overflow, so they operate with the business hours menu set to every day, all day, just as this one has. To add a new rule, you can hit the New Rule button. We will cover adding schedules in more detail with hunt groups later, because the vast majority of auto attendants use the everyday, all-day schedule. To edit a menu, press the appropriate menu button at the bottom. Let's look at the business hours menu here. Within the business hours menu, we see a lot of information. At the top is the audio information. The auto attendant will play an audio announcement to your caller, letting them know which buttons to press. You will upload your audio file with the Browse button, and you can find BroadSoft Recorder in the respective app store for Android or iOS, which is an easy way to create these files. All audio files used in the CAP are of the same type, and you can find more information on the audio repository in another video. You can enable top-level extension dialing with the switch here. You have run across this before when you hear, if you know your party's extension, you may dial it at any time. On the left, down below, are the buttons, and you can use any or all of the numbers from 0 to 9, as well as the asterisk and pound key. Then there are the actions that are taken when the button is pressed. Let's explore some of those action options next. When you select the action for a particular button, you will see numerous options open up for you. Disabled means that button will do nothing. This is the default for most buttons. Transfer with and transfer without prompt will send the caller to a designated extension or external number when pressed. With prompt will play a message before the transfer, while without will simply begin ringing. Extension dialing plays an IVR, an integrated voice response message, that then lets the caller dial the extension number they wish to reach. This can be done from the top level with the Enable Extension Dialing button from before. Transfer to Mailbox is another IVR, which will prompt for the mailbox number, while Transfer to Specific Mailbox lets you designate the mailbox where the call will go. These both go directly to the voice portal and will not ring any devices attached to the respective extensions. Name dialing is another IVR, allowing your caller to enter 3 letters of a name, and it will compare the entered letters to the user identities to try to find the user. More information about user administration is covered in another video. Play announcement will play another separate message from the main audio announcement before returning to the top level and awaiting another key press. This is ideal for details that are frequently asked, such as location information, hours of operation, or even contact info like your fax number. Repeat menu will play the announcement again and restart the timer. Every auto attendant has a 10-second timer. And if no action has been taken by the end of that timer, transfer to operator, if designated, will come into play, transferring with prompt to the extension designated. Finally, exit will terminate the call. You can see how the menu looks with a few buttons designated. Be mindful of how patient your callers will be when you design how many options to give them. When you are done, press Save Changes to update the system with your changes. Now, let's explore another type of ACD, the Hunt Group. The Hunt Group subsection is right below Auto Attendant in the Services category. This page will show you all of the Hunt groups you have created. By default, there will be one Hunt group when you start your PBX. If you wish to remove a Hunt group, there is a Delete button, and to add a new one, use the plus Hunt Group button. Finally, in order to edit the ones that you have, press the Edit button. Whether you create a new group or edit an existent one, the next menu is the same. The menu that opens after you choose to create or edit the Hunt group has all of the profile details for that group. The left side has all the details for the Hunt group when it functions properly, as in when the call comes in, finds an available extension to take the call, and then transfers it on. At the top is the group name and caller ID info, and next is the extension, which will default to 6666. You'll also see the time zone, which is used for scheduled routing purposes. Virtual numbers available to be assigned are listed next, and following this is a couple options that allow the Hunt group to attempt to deliver calls to users who are already engaged in a call, known as call waiting, and the option to transmit the caller ID internally, so the user can visually see that the incoming call is from the Hunt group. As a best practice, if you have one or two people in your group, it's best to turn call waiting on. Next, we jump down a bit to see the list of users. Select the users you wish to add to the group and press the arrow key to move them over. Depending on your next step, the hunting policy, the order you add them may be important. As you see, we have named the Hunt group so that it makes more sense and attached a virtual number. And we have added Melissa and then Holly to the Hunt group user list. Next, we will look at hunting policy, which is the computer logic that the group will use to hunt through the list of users to find one to take the call. Let's take a look at the different options available to you. Circular call routing will advance through the list, ringing one at a time, but it will remember who answered the last call, so the next one starts at the next user. This is a good way to split up a pool. Regular routing follows this list like circular, but always begins at the first name. Simultaneous rings all of them at the same time, as the name would suggest, while uniform looks at longest idle and distributes the call much like a call center would. Finally, weighted call distribution allows the administrator to designate a percentage of calls to go to each user. Once we have made our decision, we will save our changes and proceed to the next side to look at call forwarding. The right side has all the details for call forwarding the Hunt group in case an available agent is not found. Call forwarding options let you set how many rings before the algorithm jumps to the next user, unless you have it set for simultaneous, of course. And you can set the number of seconds to try the group before forwarding away. We will use this call forward after waiting option to point to the auto attendant, extension 7777, which we've set before. Not reachable is a state that will only trigger if all of the users we have designated are not visible to the system. This could be due to a local power or internet outage. Think of not reachable as the business continuity option. We will set this to go to the auto attendant at 7777 as well. The advantage of a hosted system like this is the logic of the PBX is located off-site, so you can still direct calls to auto attendants or even voicemail, even if the local area is out of commission. Remember to save when you have made any changes that you like. Finally, we will engage some scheduled call routing at the bottom. We would like to have all calls that come in outside of the regular office hours to go to the auto attendant, and the bottom of the Hunt group window will facilitate that action. Scrolling to the bottom of the window, we see the scheduled call routing area. Since there are no rules established, the first thing we should do is press the New Rule button. This adds a line where we can establish the rules parameters. We can name the rule something that makes sense, like office hours. Then we can use the drop-down menu to select from the schedules we have built previously, and then set the extension or number where we want the call to go in case the schedule being positive, which looks like this. Confirm the rules with the blue checkmark button, and then activate the scheduled call routing with the switch at the top left. Finally, save your changes at the bottom. Now, whenever the time is within the ranges we've set in the schedule, which is before 8 a.m. or after 5 p.m. during the week, or any time on the weekends, the call goes to 7777, or the auto attendant, rather than this hunt group. Here's a diagram of the incoming call flow that we have generated for our PBX. The toll-free number, which was assigned in the virtual numbers subsection, points at that hunt group, which first checks for after-hours conditions that we built in the schedules subsection. In the event of after hours, the call goes to the auto attendant, which has 3 options, including a transfer to operator in case nobody makes a selection. The hunt group rings Melissa and then Holly, and if there is no answer, it goes to the auto attendant. The 3 extensions are numbered 21, 31, and 41, and they all have voicemail boxes. There is one more extension, 1001, which corresponds to the fax machine in Daryl's office. You can see here that we have also set the across extensions for the call flow at the same time. One last piece is left, and that is the out portion. Finally, we return to the Manage Phone System subsection. Here we can designate individual outbound caller ID, otherwise known as Caller Line ID or CLID. Each seat has its own individual DID, or direct inward dialing number, and by default this is the number that is presented to the outgoing system. In order to edit the details, we will select a seat, in this case the one assigned to Melissa, and press the Edit link on the right. In the Manage Setting window, we will go to Outgoing Calls, and in the section labeled Calling Line ID, there's a drop-down menu. This menu gives you the option of choosing either the device phone number or any virtual number assigned to any group service, which we did in the virtual and toll-free numbers subsection before. As you can see in the Outgoing Calls tab, there are places to set international dialing and speed dial lists. There is a lot that can be done with the managed settings, but we will review those topics in another video. Thank you for viewing this lesson on call flow in the Customer Administration Portal 3.0. Be sure to check out our other videos for more information.